TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Cap and No Cap. I am your host, Kevin C. Meggett, and conspicuously absent is Janaea and Mr. King. Wasn't able to get either one, but everyone knows that I'm a rider, so I'm gonna just ride this out this episode on my own. And today's episode we're gonna dedicate it to some politics as well as boxing. All right, first things first, I had a beautiful business adventure down in Atlantic City and met up with some good folks. And one of the things that I'm going to perhaps be putting my hands in is both concerts as well as celebrity boxing. And, shout out to the people that I was down there. I'm not going to disclose who I was with. Not as of yet. When the time comes, the time will be right. And you'll know exactly what I'm doing with some celebrity boxing matches, as well as hip hop. I plan on having a segment or an episode talking about the politics of hip hop. I mean, that's coming very, very, very near. I was talking to Little Rodney C from the Funky Four, and I was talking to Grandmaster Melly Mel. Maybe perhaps I could get one of those guys, or even Grandmaster Kaz, or even Grand Mixer DST. They're all legendary. They're all historians when it comes to the culture of hip hop. So I love picking their brains because they are able to tell what they did so selflessly, so elegantly, if that makes any sense. Moving right along, down in Atlantic City, great time. I was doing this cleanse. I was just, for the most part, eating just fruits and vegetables, raw fruits and vegetables, and I didn't know I was kind of going to a birthday party, and it was in this, this big club with nothing but food, and we're having this meeting with nothing but food in this big club. So, the cleanse went out the window. That chicken was calling me. I felt like Pookie from New Jack. That chicken was just calling me. And so, so much for the cleanse. I'll do it again in about 3 months and probably ride it out for the 30 days. I do that quarterly. I do a cleanse quarterly, because what we don't do, especially our people, we don't clean our system out. We put a lot of junk in it. Our bodies are organic. So you got to put organic things in your body, like roughage and stuff, so things could process the right way. And so, that's what I do. That's something that I psychologically do for myself as a cleanse, to just clean my body out. But I ain't gonna hold you. It's fun dirtying it back up. Now, I don't know. We'll probably go get a steak or something later. I don't know. But moving right along, I was looking at the news. Everything right now in the news is being dominated. What's going on over in the Ukraine. Family, I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna let you know this, especially foundational Black Americans. We don't have a dog in that fight. We don't have a nickel in that quarter. You know what I mean? I think what bothers me, I wouldn't even say it hurts me, it just agitates me that when I go on social media, I see a lot of our people, foundational Black Americans, Um, I'm with Ukraine, or I'm praying for Ukraine. And, family, we need to be praying and we need to be with ourselves. We need to have that same energy that we have for the Ukraine. We need to have that for ourselves, because we're actually, whether you know it or not, prioritizing another group of people over us. And what I mean by that, this crisis is now, the Biden administration has asked for $6.6 billion, okay, with a B, $1 billion for the crisis over in the Ukraine. And family, I'm letting you know, they're in Poland today. They will be in America tomorrow. And we're sitting around still asking for reparations for slavery. And they already got $6.6 billion in reparations when they get here. So this is why other groups don't necessarily want foundational Black Americans to have any type of reparations or tangibles. One, because it should be a lineage thing. If you have to trace your ancestry back to a plantation and to be entitled to have any type of reparations. And a lot of them don't have it. They came over here and they are actually getting their reparations by just being here. I mean, I'm just going to speak truth to power. I don't have anything against the diaspora, but sometimes I wonder, does the diaspora have something against us? And when I say us, I am talking about foundational Black Americans. I mean, let me just remix this, veterans are actually being over prioritized in this too. You have $6.6 billion, right, for people that are not even citizens, that they're going to come here and they're going to practice the same anti-Black discrimination that the rest of the country has practiced. Because let's be clear, the Ukraine is a safe haven and breeding ground for neo-Nazis, just like the Sudan, everyone says, is a breeding ground and a training ground for terrorists. So they're one and the same, okay, family? And we just need to keep the needle on the record. We don't want symbolic gestures. I know this past Sunday they celebrated the march over the bridge in Alabama, Bloody Sunday, with the late John Lewis. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm going to give it to you the way I feel about it. Other than John Lewis getting beat to a pulp, what has he done for foundational Black Americans that was so great? I mean, that his claim to fame is that they beat him into submission. He's done a lot for gays. He's done a lot for immigrants. He's done nothing. And I'm not, the man's not here, so I'm not going to disparage his legacy, but he's done nothing other than get his behind whipped over in Alabama for crossing that bridge. And now you have all of these groups of people reenacting that walkover, and it's symbolic. It's a big old nothing burger, family. What we need to do is just keep the needle on the record. Foundational Black Americans, we don't want to march over no bridge. We don't want to reenact a voting right. Matter of fact, I promise you, you pass reparations for foundational Black Americans, they'll be happy to vote, okay? But all of those other things, they're symbolic gestures that don't mean anything. Doesn't matter if a Democrat or a Republican is in the office, it's a two-headed coin. They're part of the same white supremacist machine. And we want reparations. We don't want no marches, symbolic marches. So what I've been doing was pretty much trolling. A lot of people, I trolled Hakeem Jeffries. He's saying he's with Ukraine. I said, you need to have that same energy, sir, for passing a reparations bill for foundational Black Americans. Shirley Lee out and Congresswoman Shirley Lee out in Houston. She's always posting, I'm with the Ukraine. I'm marching across the bridges, and same thing, ma'am, madam. We don't need a HR 40. There's nothing to study. The test is over. We're hurting. We need emergency funding right now. If Ukrainian folk could get $6.6 billion, we don't deserve to have a study. And yeah, keep the needle on the record with that. All right, I digress. But all of that symbolism, symbolic gestures, and we looking out for other groups, no. Foundational Black Americans, you need to zero in, look out for yourselves, and we will overcome when we learn how to hold our hands. Once we can learn how to hold our own hands, then we can extend our hands to other people from other groups. And that's just, that's kind of my feeling on that. The whole Ukraine thing, the only thing that I really pay attention to with the Ukraine situation or the Ukraine crisis is the economy. And we pretty much bankrupt Russia, right? But don't think that that doesn't have a global effect. So here we are paying $10 a gallon at the pump. Everything is going up except our salaries. So what's happening is cost has come into cost has risen and spending has risen. And when cost is up and spending is up, everything is up. But your salary seems to remain the same. If you want to put teeth behind something, put teeth behind that. Put the teeth behind a gallon of milk should not cost $7. That's the real injustice. That's the real crime. June 1st through June 3rd, Washington, D.C. is going to have a homeless veteran crisis conference, June 1st to the 3rd. So all you veterans, y'all need to get down there, get seen and heard. You have folks living in Skid Row. In fact, Skid Row is really put together with veterans, and a lot of those tents that these homeless people are, and by the way, most street homeless people, I would say 1 in 4, it might be 1 in 3, 1 in 4, have served this country. And listen, I don't have a huge education, but I got common sense. But anyone with a 4th grade education could figure out, if you were to throw $6.6 billion into the veteran homeless crisis that you're going to have on June 1st and through June 3rd, you wouldn't have a veteran homeless crisis. I don't know. I digress. Our vets deserve much better than what they are receiving right now. And I'm big on veteran issues because I am a veteran. I have family members that honorably serve this country, and I'm not ashamed of my status being a veteran. And I will if I had to do it over again, I would do it the same, because this is my country. So when we start with the whole Pan-African, let's go back to Africa, I didn't come from Africa. I came from Edisto Island, South Carolina. So lose me with all of that. You know what I mean? I still love the family. There's some down riders down in Africa, whatever. But Africa is not my home. Charleston, South Carolina, Edisto Island, South Carolina. That's where I'm from. That's where my lineage actually begins, and that's where it will end. That's where my journey ends. I don't see beyond that. But I'm gonna jump into a real quick commercial break, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk a little bit about some boxing. I'm excited. Tried to give it to you before. We had some technical difficulties. I have an exciting guest. His name is Allah Meggett, and yes, the name is we're related. You know what I mean? And we're gonna bring him back. We're gonna talk about boxing. We're gonna talk about the Charleston Boxing Club. That's what he's actually running. And we're going to talk about the state of boxing and the politics of boxing and boxing of yesteryear compared to boxing of today. But we're going to do that when we come back. This is Cap or No Cap. We'll be right back.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
boxing. I gave you my editorial. Don't misconstrue. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. But I want to digress. I want to move forward, and I want to talk about boxing. It's a sport that we've always been in, and we've always pretty much dominated. And so I want to talk about today's state of boxing, and and talk about boxing of yesteryear. Now, while my guest he looks young, you know what I mean? He's a book of knowledge. Let's welcome to the show, a la Meggett. Hey, cuz, how's it going?
Peace, cuz.
Peace.
To the nation. How you doing, man?
Peace, peace. So you running a boxing club out in Charleston. My great uncle Hollywood, which is your father, was actually, he had the vision of bringing boxing to Charleston. Could you elaborate and tell me how did that come about?
Well, when we talk about my father, he's got history that starts in New York.
Absolutely.
And his history started in New York when he was 12 years old. He started boxing for the Catholic Boys Club downtown.
Right.
Then he went to the military like you did, went to the Navy like you did, and also he went home to find out where his roots was,
right,
like you did.
Like I did.
And like you did. And he found that, his people were a little bit further away from him, and he got to meet them. And once he got that, he came back to New York, and he got back into what he loved, which is boxing. Now, we're talking 1955.
Wow.
My father was the first. Okay. So at the Kennedy Center, him and, of course, one of the masters, Mr. Freddie Jones, who was running the gym at the time, my father started working with him, training his fighters. And they had a stream of Golden Glove champions that went on for about 8, 9 years, 10 years. And through that, he started getting to the point to where he had a connection with these fighters. And it was like those champions of old from those Golden Glove days that drew him more closer to the game, is not just being a trainer. When you had guys like, Vincent Shomo, who was the first to hold the record for Golden Glove wins before our brother Mark Breland broke the record.
Right.
That record held for 35 years. So that record held for 35 years. Shomo was one of my father's fighters that he trained.
Wow.
And what happened in that was, what opened his mind up was when Vincent Shomo was ready to go pro, which also during the Vincent Shomo time is how he met Muhammad and Joe and other guys in the game and so forth. But when Vincent Shomo was going to go pro, at that time we knew that the game itself of boxing was controlled by, the
Italian mafia.
Exactly. So they came and they took Shomo, but because my father was just a trainer, but because him and this young man had so much time together in the training, and because my father was never a trainer to just train you in the ring, he never wanted just to have a champion in the ring, he wanted to have a champion outside the ring as well. So they talked about more things than just boxing. They grew together with so much more things than boxing. But when that was taken away, he said, you know what? I'm never going to put myself in a situation like that again. I'm going to manage these fighters. I'm going to start managing these fighters. So he got some money from some people that believed in his dream, and he was the first Black boxing manager in the state of New York.
Oh, wow.
That's fact. That's on record. Yeah, that's fact. That's on record. That's your granduncle. And from there, he just took off. I mean, from Roundtree, from Emil Griffith to all these guys. And remember, Emil Griffith, his claim, what people know him for is killing someone in the ring.
Right.
But, he had so many champions and people around him, he built up a connection. Like, he built up a connection with Madison Square Garden. He would leave him out the house and leave Teaneck and go right to Madison Square Garden, and he'd do that all day and be around fighters. So we talk about guys like Mr. Goodman Sr., all that comes into play because they used to sit down all day and talk about fighters and match guys up and, at Madison Square Garden. So he was always a Madison Square Garden man.
Right.
When he had more fighters, he started training more people that you know in the business, like the Don Turners, the Billy Giles, all these guys. I mean, number of guys that came up under him. But let me step back a little bit, because when he became a manager trainer, he started meeting the legends, the masters, you know, like Mr. Sid Martin, the
Right.
masters, Mr. Sid Bell, the masters, you know, George Garvey, who's called the Emperor, you know,
Oh
the guy
wow.
who was Sugar Ray Robinson's
Right.
manager and trainer, the Emperor. He was around these guys, and he was around my godfather, Bobby McQuillan, you know, another guy who was the first to kill someone in the ring. And it's not about killing someone in the ring. It's just about knowing the technique. And I bring these guys up because these are the masters. These were the ones that brought the game from the art of fisticuffs and bare knuckle boxing. And, you know, we know that from that history, bare knuckle boxing had to change to where they
You have
started
the gloves.
protecting the head. I know
Right.
you want to talk about going into the history of it. And I'm just dabbing in that because that's where my father came from.
Right.
So when he passed away in October, he is officially the last of the masters.
Right.
And
Wow.
it was a big loss in boxing, and it was, you know, the bell went around, and everybody paid homage to it and respect to it. And I appreciate everybody for their love and their support all over
And he was
that knew
very
my father from.
he was he was very loved.
So again,
He was very loved because
oh yeah,
that funeral was just huge, man. There was like so many people there, you know, and
yeah.
I couldn't even get a flight, man. I
And
said I took a bus down there, you know, but you know because
you
I had to be down
remember
there. Yeah,
the wake and the funeral was like in Charleston. The wake and the funeral was like standing room only, move around, get you moving, keep people going, because it was too many people. Because he was loved.
yeah, he was very
One thing
loved.
my father always taught love. You know, that's what he taught. You know, being as they might say is a barbaric.
Well, I don't think it's so much that it's barbaric. I think sometimes that you know a lot of these other sports could be just considered as barbaric. I mean, football could be barbaric. Any other sport could be barbaric. I think we may have had a little bit of difficulty, you know, so we're gonna wait till we could get our law back. But I think a lot of these other sports are just as considered barbaric. Boxing is actually it's an art. It's a very disciplined art, and you got to want to have that discipline. So you know, we still seem to dominate the business of boxing. I just don't like the fact that, I mean, one of my favorite boxers, and I say one of them, believe it or not, is actually Floyd Mayweather. But what happened with Floyd was a very smart man, because boxing is in a residual. It's not a residual sport. You get paid after when you perform, and you get paid that one time. So that's why you still have folks that are boxing well out of their prime, because money management issues. He was able to finesse the game to be exactly what he wanted it to be. Like, if you want to see me fight, be prepared to pay to see me fight. And I think he has earned as much as $1 billion for a fight. That's smart. But what happened, in my humblest opinion, what's happening is you have a lot of copycats that are trying to be just like Floyd. You know, Floyd was able to do what he did because he put in the discipline. You know, he went to pretty boy to money, Mayweather, you know, money team. So he was able to actually perfect that the money that he was actually asking for. So, but nowadays boxers don't want to fight unless the money is right. You know what I mean? And that's when I think the different league, WBA and all of them, need to jump in and say, hey, look, you're gonna have to fight. And so you know, a lot of what you see with our boxing today isn't as good as it was in yesteryear, because a lot of the boxers yesteryear actually would fight in a telephone booth if they had to. No one knows telephone booths don't really exist today, but that's something that was in my time. We used to have telephone booths, but they just fought for the sport. And it seems like the sport of boxing now has also, progressed away from what it could have, should have, would have been. I think we got Allah back. I was just telling folks, I was telling the audience how one of my favorite boxers was Floyd Mayweather, and one of them, I always say one, he's not my absolute favorite. I think I got about a handful. I love Bernard Hopkins, you know what I mean? But I love Floyd Mayweather because they used to say, oh, he used to make fun of, oh, he can't read, but he knew how to count, but while he did the game a service, and he definitely sure knew how to box. And you can't take that from him, right? I thank you for clarifying that. But he helped the game and he hurt it because he was able to finesse it for you to pay $1 billion to see him fight, which has never been done in boxing ever. But what he did was, by doing that, you had all of these copycats that like Broner, you know what I mean, wanting to be just like him, but you not cut from that same cloth, bro. You know what I mean? Like,
you're right.
And right. So
you're not him. You're
right.
The things he went through.
Right. Your allegory is way different than his, and it hurts because I'm not fighting unless the money's right. Meanwhile, a lot of these people have fought for the sport. You know what I mean? And that kind of left away from boxing. No one's fighting for the sport of it any longer. You want to talk about that real quick with me?
Okay. Well, here's the thing. In boxing, when boxing took its not fall, but when it dropped down and MMA was the big thing for everybody to go see, and they paying millions of dollars to watch MMA and all that kind of stuff, you started to see the boxing separated. It changed from the athlete to the entertainer. What made it successful was Floyd was able to be at a position in the time where he can pick and choose who he fought.
Right.
And that's business.
Right.
That was business because, no one made it a thing until Floyd did it. No one said anything when Oscar did it.
Right.
No one said anything when other champions have done it, or others that said that Floyd did it. But they brought it up with Floyd because, with Floyd, you're taking away what the crowd actually wants, you see, because boxing is supposed to be a blood sport. People don't watch boxing to see the scientists move around the ring, and it's a dance, and they're doing things to open up things, and they're throwing punches to, they don't want to see that. People want to see somebody get knocked out. People want to see somebody get knocked out the ring, dropped in the middle, fall face flat on their face. And they don't know these athletes train. They train, so it's very hard. It's very hard. I ask any person, any civilian, go in the boxing gym, put some gloves on, and get in there with a boxer and spar. You'll see how dangerous 3 minutes can be.
Absolutely.
So it's like, so when you look at it as a blood sport, and it's got to be a knockout or it's not sufficient as a win. What Floyd did was Floyd looked at his father, who I know, and his uncle Roger, who came to the gym to visit Hollywood.
He came down to visit Hollywood, that's right.
Times. And yeah, man, we got pictures on. Like Roger said to me, if I want to talk real boxing to a real boxer, how he always said, you don't know nothing about no boxing?
That's right.
He'll come and talk to Hollywood.
And he was, and it's crazy, cousin, because I loved his uncle too. Roger was the assassin, right? He would come in with all his Mexican, because at the time Mexicans were actually dominating the sport, and he was assassinating them, bro. Like, he was the Mexican. I loved Roger, man. I used to love watching Roger, man.
That's exactly right. But again, when you take the athlete and you make that a brand or an entertainment piece, where we're at now in boxing, everything's brand and entertaining.
Right.
It's not so much as what you do in the ring and then what you qualify in the ring as a win doesn't mold so well with the viewers and the fans. The fans feel like, oh, well, I expected more. Well, what when it's man on man, and this man has a strategy, this man has a strategy. Styles make fights.
Right.
So, for me, my favorite fight of all time, even though I grew up in, Deer Lake, Pennsylvania with Ali, my favorite fight of all time is Sugar Ray Robinson. That's something. And Floyd, he can say he's the greatest. And this generation might think he's the greatest because they don't have any information or never watched the Sugar Ray Robinson fight. The same way people say, oh, LeBron's the greatest, but they never really watched Jordan play.
Right.
So it's like, or able to see Bill Russell play, for what it is, the fans have that say and that control of ideal, but who that person is, he's a champion. You can't take that from him. He's a champion. He won his fights. He fought who we wanted to fight, and sometimes we need to fight. And he made that record. I mean,
That's
you can't
right.
take that away from him. He did those rounds with those people. That is what it is. But like I was saying, I think I led off at it being a blood sport, and people thinking it's just all about violence. My father taught love. I've never ever heard, and no one ever heard my father say, I hate somebody.
Right.
He might just agree with somebody, but no one's ever heard my father ever say, I hate somebody.
Right.
So for that, he was loved. He said, if you deal with people righteously, if they're not righteous in themselves, they'll move away from you.
He's
You don't have
a
to
righteous
scream
man.
at them, yell at them, push them, nothing. They'll move away from you because they can't share that equality of being righteous. So that's always been his life. And he's met hundreds of people. And the thing is, Charleston's been blessed to have my father because he brought to Charleston something that wasn't there.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in 1 minute. Cousin, we're going to talk about what he brought to Charleston in 1 minute. We're going to take a real quick commercial break, and then we're going to jump right back into this. Cap and No Cap, we'll be back after this quick commercial break.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
No Cap, talking about politics and boxing. I have my guest. I'm sorry, I'm your host, but I have my guest, Meggett, who's definitely, we were chopping it up about Charleston, and my great uncle Hollywood. So he brings boxing. He goes to the military, and he brings boxing to Charleston after he comes out of the military.
He went to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so he went back to New York after the military.
Okay.
And that's when he started working at the Kennedy Center with Mr. Freddie Jones. And
Okay, seem like we're having a little technical difficulties. Hopefully we're bringing our law back. So one of the other things with boxing is that we need to bring more boxing criterias to these youth. I mean, a lot of them shoot so much because they don't know how to shoot their hands. You know what I mean? And it's a discipline. It makes you think of things a lot different. I have a daughter that boxes up. It seems like we got him back. Allah, you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, so he comes back to New York.
He comes back to New York. He goes to Kennedy Center, starts working with Mr. Freddie Jones,
Okay.
and he's training all the fighters. And at that time, like I said, for the 10 years that he was there, he put out Golden Glove champions. Like the CBCs, the original CBCs, they were rolling. I mean, they were rumbling and tumbling. They were rolling like wins after wins. They were winning them basically almost every weight class.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did was when he moved my grandmother down to Charleston, he had his mentor, my godfather, Bobby Allah McQuillan, who actually named me. He sat on Edisto Beach and he said, "Bobby, what am I supposed to do now?" And my godfather said to him, "You're supposed to teach boxing. Take care of your family." And he said, "Can I do it down here? All this racism, all this." He says, "Wherever you are, you can do whatever you want to do."
This whole country is racist. That's right.
Say it again.
This whole entire country is racist.
I can't hear you. You sound a little robotic on that. Say it one more time.
I said the whole entire country is racist. So for him to bring it down there because and say, oh well, South Carolina or Charleston is racist, the Bronx is racist. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, at that time, we're talking about the early 70s, and about 5 years old at the time, and we left camp with Ali and we went and brought grandma down to Edisto. But the craziest thing is that decision was made on Edisto Beach.
Wow.
And
Wow. Okay, we have an audio. I think the audio technical difficulty is on his end, and not necessarily mine. But to give him, to add on to what he's saying, yeah. So he's from Hollywood, was from Edisto Island, which is where my family's from, and we shout out to the Meggets because there are about 1 million living Meggets in this country right now, and the common thread is we all come from Edisto Island. So a lot of air property and stuff like that is down there. Are you back, Allah? I think we're having some technical difficulties, but I think it's on your end. I don't know if I hope it's not on ours. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So he had a decision to make. My godfather told him, train fighters, raise your family here. And he had a decision to make because he's got all these fighters in New York, all his history in New York. These guys don't even know him in this area. There's racism. He's got other things he has to fight against. But my father said what my godfather said to him resonated with him. And he said, well, let me do something now. Since I've been on this grand scale, let me start from the grassroots and raise my own champion. And that's when we're going to do the Charleston Boxing Club. And he created that, and he proposed this from 1980 and got the gym. My father used to run around with a punching bag. But once the word got around that he was the guy, it was wildfire. And we had, again, a stream of Golden Glove champions and regional champions, national champions. All this kind of stuff started popping back up again because he chose to be in a different area. But again, he came from Mr. Sid, the other Mr. Sid, my godfather, Mr. George. These were.
Okay, seems like we're having more audio technical difficulty, but Allah's sitting here giving us a lot of insight on boxing and how Hollywood Meggett brought that down to Charleston. His name is Al Hollywood Meggett. He brought this down to Charleston, and it was his target audience were at-risk youth. And my argument, this is the political end, I don't know if he made a lot of champions, and if we could get Allah back, maybe he could let me know. I don't know necessarily if he made a lot of champions, but he did make very successful human beings, and I think he made a lot of champions on the amateur level. Like he stated earlier, Roger Mayweather came down. Muhammad Ali came down. A whole bunch of folks came down to join.
There's a.
Oh, he's back.
Hey,
Okay,
cuz,
cool.
I'm back.
Nice. So I was telling our audience how you created, first of all, he's seen a need. These were a lot of the people that he helped were at-risk youth that the father wasn't necessarily in. He became their father. You know what I mean? He became their daddy. You know what I mean? He taught them not only how to be boxers, but how to be good human beings. He taught them how to eat right. He taught them, how to be respectful. And so I don't know if he made a lot of champions, but what he did was he made a lot of accountants, a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers. He made a lot of progressive, forward-thinking people that are on a professional level, and he used it through the science of boxing. And so one of the things that I kind of argue with, all of these boxing clubs should be able to get grants to push something like this, including down in South Carolina, to push this initiative, just knowing that you have a track, Uncle Hollywood had a track record of making professional people that necessarily would not have been professional had they not had the boxing club. So, how do we, what's the word? It's crazy because anything that bears real good fruit in America, particularly and especially for foundational Black Americans, however, everything that, just his boxing club wasn't just exclusive to foundational Black Americans. He dealt with any and everyone. So, but he himself is foundational Black, but anything that could give us bear good fruit, it seems like we're kept from it. Sometimes I wonder, it's like you create a situation in us, and then you point at it. Like, in other words, if and this is going back to Dr. Frances Cress Wellington. She was saying how you could raise a dog in a kennel, and you don't let it out the kennel, and the puppy will grow into a full-fledged dog, but it grows deformed, and then you ridicule the fact that the dog, you're not looking at the condition that made it that way, but you're looking at that. So if it bears good fruit, right, why not invest wholeheartedly in our youth? And this is the politics of, I think boxing. There's a lot of boxing clubs right here, even here in the Bronx. Like, shout out to Aaron Superman Davis, another good friend of mine. His father was also taught by my great uncle, the Tumbler. So he has a boxing club right at Morris. I think it's Morris Park Boxing Club. Why isn't the city council in that area getting discretionary funds to get these kids off the street? But we're looking at the fact that we went through a whole pandemic. We basically had everyone locked up, locked out. Crime is on an all-time high. You got a Ukraine crisis that $6.6 billion are going to be over prioritized to someone else. You got veterans sleeping on Skid Row with an American flag in their tent, but you don't have the good resources to invest. Part of the infrastructure here in America, ladies and gentlemen, is investing in community. Good communities bear good fruit. Good fruit bears good jobs pay good taxes, and so forth and so on. The problem is we're fighting and we're not getting the resources that other groups tend to get. But the flip side is we're not doing a lot of what we could be doing as well. With respects to the census, with respects to voting. Now, as much as I say, for those that know me, I'll tell you in a heartbeat, if you don't have an agenda on the table, don't vote. I still stand by that, by the way. I'm not wavering off of that. But it's not no one's responsibility to put our agenda on the table. It's our responsibility to put our agenda on the table and to move things. But you got to be able to want to hold certain people accountable. And when you hold them accountable, it's not always popular. A lot of political people, they seem to get angry with me because I hold them accountable. It's not personal, but you work for me. I don't work for you. You know, whether I vote, if I abstain to vote, it doesn't make you as a city councilman, a state assembly, a district leader, any less my representation than if I did vote. Because I could have not voted for you and you still won, and it still doesn't make you any less than. My thing is, we need agendas on the table, and we need to put those agendas there and make them hold accountable and hold true to it. And one of the things I would like to see, we should have boxing in schools. Hire some of these people in these gyms to run a boxing program in high school. Let these kids get their energy out by holding smokers or something like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just a messenger. You know, don't kill me, kill the message. You have high crimes. You talk about put the guns down. Well, give them something to pick up. Pick your hands up. You know, shoot this energy out. Because all it is energy. It's bad energy. We could get that out. And then, you know, people shoot because they don't know how to fight. And then the people that do know how to fight, don't know where the fight is. So I know how to fight, and I know where to shoot. You know, like, and the bottom line is, you know, we say, I'm a man and I'm this and I'm that, but you know what else we are? We're citizens. You know, foundational Black Americans are citizens, and we're the old. We should have gotten more because we are the oldest citizens that have corrected less. We have watched immigrants become over prioritize over us. We've watching the LGBTQ community be over prioritized over us. And by the way, white LGBTQ people are some of the most racist people ever. And I urge a lot of our Black brothers and sisters that's living an alternative lifestyle, perhaps you may want to call yourself something different other than that, because they're only recruiting you for your numbers, but they get the bag. And, you know, we need to really figure out, how do we get the bag? How do we push certain issues? You know, there's a narrative that will definitely say, you know, they try to run this agenda to say foundational Black Americans are homophobic, that's hogwash. That's not true. Because if we were homophobic, there's so many gay entertainers and movie stars and rappers that, you know, we've just accepted with open arms, and we didn't care. We don't care. You know, we just give us the music or the movies or whatever you have going on. So that's a lot of hogwash. That's people. Those are other groups projecting on us, and that's because we don't own and control anything. And that should be the thing, family, owning and controlling. And one of the things I would like to see, because I do work very close with my cousin down in Charleston, is I would like to see boxing become just as much of a sport in school as football, basketball, baseball. It should become part of that extra curriculum. But I'm sitting here, you know, I tend to babble. I'm not babbling. I hope I'm making sense to a lot of you, but I'm gonna take a real quick commercial break because you know, we gotta pay those bills. But I'm gonna take a real quick commercial break, and I'm gonna come back. Hopefully we could get our law back. If not, you know, we'll sum it up. But we're gonna take a real quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Cap and no cap.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Okay, we're back. My guest, Allah Meggett, has gone, but I want to thank him for the insight that he did happen to share with us. Very insightful. The work that he has done down in, or is still doing, I'm sorry, we never got a chance to get to that part. So perhaps I'll bring him down, or perhaps maybe I'll just bring him to New York and have him side by side, and then we won't have no type of technical difficulties. He'll be right here in the studio and we get to chop it up, because I really want to do this whole boxing thing. Schools around the country should embrace it as an alternative. It's crazy. As an alternative to violence, we should pick up a sport that you deem violent. You know, if that makes sense. Because all it is energy. People got issues with one another. They could bring it in the ring instead of bringing it to a gunfight or something like that. So we never got really a chance to, per se, get into that part of the conversation. What he was going to tell you is that a lot of those kids were at-risk youth, and my great uncle Hollywood, he really helped a lot of those kids. He was a giant amongst ants, and the city of Charleston had worked with him, and some of them had opposed him, but for the most part, he just he did the work. He was about the work, and they're continuing to do the work. The building has just gotten a makeover, brand new, just about everything, showers, everything, and they're doing their thing. But there are boxing organizations right here in the Bronx that have that same thing, and I'm sure boxing is a global sport. So wherever you are in the world, because we do broadcast all over the world. So if you're in Africa, or if you're in Asia, or Europe, invest in your boxes, and you're investing, because boxing is a science. It's a very sweet science, and I think it tends to make good human beings. I have a daughter that boxes, and she's phenomenal. But I digress. So let me give you a little bit of my closing thoughts. So as far as my closing thoughts are concerned, trolling, because I was telling you that earlier, I promise to continue to troll. These are elected officials that claim to be doing stuff for us, but are doing everything against us. Like, I don't even know. Family, get rid of the NAACP, get rid of Congressional Black Caucus, or show me where they've done anything to push foundational Black American issues. We could start there. They don't. They found NAACP does more for immigrants and LGBTQ, as well as Congressional Black Caucus. They'll do more for them than they'll actually do for you. And so I'm just, forgive me for being a little agitated for allowing other groups to eat the marrow out the bones of my ancestors. It's just, that's just what it is. We control, everyone's getting their goodies based off of our narrative. The LGBTQ, they're doing the whole LGBTQ history. And the reality is LGBTQ really does not have a history. And if there's anyone that would like to come on the show, and as long as you're respectful, you can show me where their history starts. I mean, they love to say their history started at that Stonewall thing, but those were transvestites getting beaten up. Those were Black transvestites getting really beaten up by white Johns. They weren't. So, foundational Black Americans don't have a history of hurting LGBTQ. I want to really shatter that, because that's a form of warfare against us, and they use this warfare against us to put the world against us. So as far as the Ukraine, I will continue. Now, I don't want you to think I don't have any empathy. I don't want to see women and children being bombed and killed, but I'm not jumping out of a window or a Cheerio. I'm not jumping through a Cheerio for someone in Eastern Europe, whereas we have issues here, and I've never seen Eastern Europe say, poor foundational Black Americans. They have it so bad. Oh my God, they built the White House, they built the country from scratch, and they've gotten nothing but we're not even second class citizens no more. We seem to be like fourth or fifth. We're like at the very bottom of the tolling pole as a group. Okay. Now you'll raise up certain individuals, like the Oprah Winfrey's, the Michael Jordan, so forth and so on, and they will allow them to be the yardstick of what the group should have, and that's not fair, family. That's just not fair. And we got to get those. It's interesting, but I seem to think that there's a conspiracy, an unwritten rule that celebrities who have benefited from their celebrity cannot come back and help foundational Black Americans directly. And, this is just a theory, but I want you to follow me with this theory, okay? Oprah Winfrey, she creates a school in South Africa. Right here in America, our children are being miseducated. Now you could turn and say, oh, LeBron James has a school. LeBron James' name has a school. See, the curriculum is still one and the same. You still have the same curriculum. You just have his name plastered on the curriculum. So we have to be able to own and control what's good for us. Our problems are your very unique problems. And what we're going to have to start doing, see, we run away from our Blackness, foundational Black Americans. We start running away from it. Instead of running away from our problems, we're going to have to start running to it. See, we're exceptional in American society. Black history is really American history. And Black folk were here way before Columbus. So when people started migrating over here from Europe because of religious persecution or whatever mistreatment or whatever narrative, that's hogwash too. Because if you left somewhere for religious persecution, you know what I mean? You could have just stayed there and practiced another way. Why did you come here to the New World because you were being persecuted, say in Britain? If you were persecuted in Britain, well, then why didn't you go over to Ireland? You came here really for two things. You came here for free land and free labor, and both of them came out of Black people. You got the free land from Black people, and you got the labor out of Black people, and you use that to empower yourself. So there are reparation talks that are being talked about. I, for one, don't think any other group of people are qualified to talk about foundational Black American issues except for foundational Black Americans. Congresswoman Cheryl Lee, she, I believe, started that HR 40. We should all back away from HR 40. We don't need any study. And from my understanding, she is first generation Jamaican. Her issues are different from my issues. No disrespect to you, ma'am, but it should be a foundational Black American that draws this up and advocates for it, because they share the same lineage. You do not share our lineage. You can do what you're doing back in Jamaica and make your argument in with England, which you are doing, by the way, because they have this thing called CARIBCOM, which is similar to asking for reparations from England or Great Britain, like we're doing here in America. So, and she's very active on that. She moves with, like, she got house slippers on with HR 40, like she's scared to walk or scared to talk about it. But when it comes to CARIBCOM, oh, she's all over that. So, lose me with that. With foundational Black America, do not support this woman with this issue. To the family that's down in Houston, believe me, when you see this, I need you to just do a little bit of research of what I'm telling you. All right. I don't have anything against Jamaicans. some of my best friends, and that's so cliche, are Jamaican. So it's, I don't, but that's individualism. That's each one has an individual. As individually, I don't have a problem with no one. As a group, you tend to bound and tie yourself in as a group to get resources. So, and here in the Bronx, they're doing a great job. At least where I live, and shout out to them for doing it. We need to be doing the same thing. Family, foundational Black American family, we used to do things like that, so we're gonna have to go back to the things that work and just kind of tie into the things that worked for us, because it's not working. I'm excited. I'm gonna be writing for a new, I'm gonna be doing a contributing writing. I'm gonna be doing contributing writing for a newspaper called The New American. Janaea Butler, she's supposed to be here today. We were just going to chop it up a little bit about that. But, I welcome the opportunity to be able to extend my views. And you could pretty much look for me to say the same things on different issues. The only thing is, when I'm on the show, I kind of move around, I jump around from topic to topic. So the only thing is, writing this, being a contributor writer for this newspaper, I would probably just stick to one issue and then arm you with all of the facts that you need to know. And again, it's called The New American. All right. We are American because, well, we were American when this country was Turtle Island. We were American. So, I'm gonna talk about that too. I'm excited to be able to write about that, and I really want to get into a little bit of these Native Americans. I apologize. Aborigine, Indigenous Americans, which are the parents of Native Americans. No disrespect to nobody, but I don't do the whole tolerance, inclusive, and diversity thing, because foundational Black Americans, you adopt this mentality, and what you're doing essentially is tolerating, including, and then diversifying yourself out of a picture you rightfully belong in. You're being cropped right out of that picture. So I want to touch on hip hop maybe next week. No, next week we're gonna bring someone on. I want to bring my homegirl E-Toy on. She has a lifestyle that she's promoting, and after that we're going to do the hip-hop thing, and then right after that, I promise you, we're going to do I'm going to get into Indigenous Aborigine Americans, and this is what makes a foundational Black American as well, because you got to remember, to be a foundational Black American, you got to be able to possess one or all three of the following. You came here, you're from a lineage that has always been here, which is Aborigine, Indigenous, all right? Moors, because a lot of people don't know, the Moors have been coming back and forth before Columbus was even born to the Americas, all right? And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, but I believe once Granada fell, that they found the maps, the sand maps to come here. And then you have chattel slavery, which did exist. Some people say, oh, I don't believe slavery exists. I believe that, yes, we had chattel slavery, but I think the numbers are way lower than what they are. I believe chattel slavery only made up 17% of what we would call the Black population. But the Black, that just basically tells you, hey, we've been here already. If it only made up 17% of the so-called Black population, it tells you that we've already been here. So those three things are weaved in like a basket. I don't know if you've ever been down to Charleston, South Carolina. There's a place called the Old Market. You will see a foundational Black American sitting there weaving a basket. That's how that same weave was how we're weaved into being foundational Black Americans. But I digress. Those are my final thoughts. I promise I'm gonna continue fighting for veterans and their services, because they deserve it, because they paid a price and they're still paying a price, especially these Vietnam War vets that are trying to claim for services or being service connected, and they're being denied. The fact that you drafted an 18-year-old kid and sent them to fight in a conflict that we never won, by the way. We just pulled them out, and they can't prove PTSD. You gotta be kidding. But I have very little faith in VA. VA's only because the VA itself is lily white, and so these are things we're gonna have to fight against, family. But I digress. I promise to continue trolling when I see I have to troll, and that goes for any congressman that is either foundational Black American or call themselves fighting for foundational Black American causes that I see them doing anything different. I'm going to do these. I'm going to continue doing these things because it needs to be called out. And I'm so grateful for Millennium TV 24 for giving me such a platform. I'm always quick to tell you, if I didn't have this platform, I'd probably be in a mental institution or something. And if you're tuning in, guess what? You might be mentally ill too. But thank you, family. Download Millennium TV 24. We're on Roku. We're on Apple TV. We're on your Androids. All these other crazy devices that I probably lose the name of. But we are here. And please, family, advertise with us. We need advertising, you know. I'm just one of many views. I know they're sharp, but I find them to be truthful to me. And a lot of people seem to agree with me, so I guess I'm not the only one that feels this way. I just have enough spine to actually say what's on my mind and have a platform to do it. But we do need advertising because this is show is becoming very popular, and we are worldwide. And I want to shout out to the rest of the world and thank them for watching us. And until next week, we'll see you then. Have a great one.